typically a refugee who begins that process within the country for which they're looking to seek asylum. So they may have entered the United States on a temporary visa and then have a fear of returning to their home country. And so they begin that process within the United States. There's Cuban Haitian entrants, special immigrant visas, that's primarily issued to Iraqis or Afghanis who have assisted the United States military, and then that puts them at risk. And then there's survivors of human trafficking. And here's a little bit about displacement statistics in 2019. The number of forcibly displaced people worldwide in 2019 was 79.5 million. And it has grown since then. And I'm sorry, my screen just keeps going back and forth without me doing anything. And as you can see here, 26 million of those are refugees. So some of those, when you're looking at the number of 79 million, many of those are internally displaced within their home country, but are not able to go back to their homes. And here's some demographics. When we look at refugees, 50% are children, 68% being survivors of violence, and people with legal and physical protection needs. And then the top refugee producing countries, so where people are fleeing from, you see here on this slide. And then hosting countries receiving refugees, and this is based on 2020 statistics. And you can see these are the top 10, and United States is not listed there. Our numbers are much lower. Okay, and a little bit about the process. So the application process, refugees are the most vetted people to enter the United States. They go through numerous background and security checks, health screening, interviews prior to being accepted and resettled to the United States. And then here's some numbers for 2020 as far as the top 10 states with refugees being resettled. And you can see Michigan is there, number 5 with 493. And I believe that total, it says 2019, but I believe that's 2020 actually, that total of 11,814. That is very low. The number of refugees that have been resettled the last few years has been continued to be lower and lower, with the lowest number we've ever resettled in the United States in this past year in the history of refugee resettlement. And then here's a little glimpse into arrivals by nationality. You can see that the majority of refugees arriving in Michigan in 2020 were from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And then you can see the others here as well, but the overwhelming majority in recent years has been Congolese. And this is just a little bit about Congolese refugees. Very diverse, 250 different ethnic groups, 7 different language dialects. Many of our clients who come as refugees speak 4, 5, 6 different languages. That's not unusual. And again, here's another little glimpse. That second one, Congolese refugee crisis, is the product of nearly 16 years of armed conflict. More than 3 million have been displaced from their home due to war, persecution, and sexual violence. And then just a little bit about secondary migrants, because we have a lot of secondary migrants coming to West Michigan. And again, those are primarily Congolese and also Burmese. But what that means is that they're initially resettled in another state or even another part of Michigan. And then they are coming and making their home in West Michigan. So they may have been resettled in Texas, for example, and then they come to Michigan. And we're seeing a lot of that with our Congolese. There's a strong community of Congolese here in West Michigan, a thriving community. And at West Michigan, we have a lot of support for those coming as refugees. A little bit about our services at Bethany. So we help with that initial resettlement period. And that is a very short time frame where we're able to do that initial resettlement, finding housing, connecting them to volunteers, finding a medical home, connecting to schools for the children, all of those transportation, all of those immediate needs. We also have post-resettlement services that are able to support individuals for a longer period of time. We have an employment program where we're assisting with placing individuals in their first job, or oftentimes more than that, and also assisting with English language classes and continuing education. We also have comprehensive medical care, as well as a refugee foster care program. And these are just some common areas of need. Again, employment, English language, literacy, transportation, medical issues, understanding United States culture, trauma, and then you'll see in the middle is childcare. And that's where our Hands Connected program comes in. So the Hands Connected Provider Network is our program that is supporting individuals of refugee background to help them start licensed home-based childcare businesses. They are able to then provide culturally and linguistically responsive care to other families and children in our community. And typically they are serving more than 150 children collectively per month. And the majority of those children are also of refugee background. So through that network, we're giving families access to culturally responsive, quality licensed childcare. We are allowing the individuals who came as refugees themselves to be part of that solution. And we are supporting them, helping them sustain and grow their businesses. So we're not just helping with that initial startup period. We just continue to help them sustain those businesses, provide ongoing support, continuing education, and technical assistance. And then comes our recently funded navigation services, which is what we're primarily here to talk about today, in our connection with MomsBloom. So we did receive the Ready by 5 funding that began this past January, that has allowed us to begin building on our Hands Connected program and helping to connect families and children within our network, and then also those of refugee background outside of our provider network, helping to connect them to early childhood services. So we are really excited about that. Manira is going to talk a little bit more about that. She joined us as the program coordinator for our navigation services. And so Manira, I think I'll let you take it away and tell us a little bit about your experience so far.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Manira Mohammed. Just give you a small introduction about myself. Originally I'm from Somalia. I was born and raised and half-time in Kenya and in Uganda also. Got married and lived in the United Arab Emirates. So my experiences there, gave me the knowledge of 7 different languages. I'm fluent in 7 different languages. So when I decided to move to the US, yes, I've been working as an interpreter for almost 17 years. So my job as an interpreter has given me the chance to interact with a lot of families, especially the African community, the Congolese community. And I've worked with them. Kimber, I've worked with you before, yes, as an interpreter, yes. And it's just wonderful to see you again. So as I connect with these families, it's been a wonderful journey. The journey is still continuing. It's been wonderful and amazing in the sense I have built a very good bond, very good trust with these families, and they're just part of your family. You wake up in the morning, you go to work, and you're looking forward to go do what you like to do best, because they're very accommodating people. And because we come from, I think, the same cultural background, so it makes it so easy. Even when you go to interpret, you're very aware of what their cultures and traditions are. And even when you're working with the providers, you give them a chance to try and understand. Sometimes where the barriers, like there are barriers there, where people might be saying things which they think is okay, but maybe it's not okay. So these are some of the things that I'm going to be discussing. And I would like, most of you just to get a hang of it or just have a little understanding about it. But let me talk about my job as the program coordinator. So as Kim mentioned, primarily we are working with the childcare providers with children to try and identify, any kind of needs that they might be having, which can be developmental, it could be social, it could be physical, it could be speech. There are many things. And enrolling, and registering kids for early school. We started in March, and the experiences have been wonderful. The responses have been amazing. Really, it's just been word of mouth. And through this navigation that we're doing, we got to meet MomsBloom. Another plus point, and it's just an amazing service that we both, Kim and me, had not even heard of. And when Kimber told us about it, it was like, wow, we didn't even know something like this existed. And the reason we are very happy about this is I personally, as an interpreter, have gone so many times. I could tell you about my experiences as an interpreter through labor and delivery with, I don't even know, it's countless how many women I've been through. I've seen normal delivery. Some of them tell me, I think you could even perform some of these. Yes, I've seen cesareans. And when we talk about postpartum, depression, most of our moms do not even understand what we're talking about. When you ask that Edinburgh screening, the 10 questions, which I think I can even tell you offhand, I've memorized them, I've done them day in and day out. When you ask them some of these questions, they're shocked. Sincerely, they're very shocked. It's like, what are you talking about? We've never heard anything of this sort, like, I just had a baby and I love my baby. Or why would I be sad? Why would I cry? Or why? These things are there. It's not like they're not there. They are there, but people have not identified them. And they've not addressed them as an issue that needs to be looked at. So people tend to ignore. Your mom, you've had a baby, and that's just about it. So a lot of these things, you have to bring it to them in a very sensitive and cultural way. When interpreters are working, you have to be very specific when you're asking these questions. It's just not like you're passing by these questions. It's very important. So when MomsBloom comes into question, comes into our picture, I'm looking at it as, this is going to be an amazing experience for most of our mothers. And we've had wonderful response. So far we have already recruited, we've enrolled. And your services are like, wow, amazing. I sent Kimber an email with a client, and just like that, they got in touch just like that, the ball started rolling. And one of our clients was just say, this is a godsend. She has 7 children, a 7th baby. She said, I wish I had known about these services before. So we would like the volunteers to be aware of several things. I mean, most of the time when they go home to visit the moms, and most of you are going to be coming across this. Number one, most of the women, me for one, it's something that we have been brought up with, and it's something very psychological. We always have to abide with what our husbands say or our partners say, you know. And you'll notice this anytime or anywhere you go, there's always, when you ask them questions, and if a husband is there, you'll always see the husband replying on behalf of the wife. And most of the time, most women do not make decisions on their own. It's like, can I go and discuss this with my husband? Can I go and ask him if this is okay? They are still not in that position where they feel free to be making decisions on their own. So it shouldn't be coming as a surprise to you. I mean, it takes time. It takes a very long time. Some of them who have been here for a while and had children, you know, like are learning, but it's a very slow process. So when you talk about MomsBloom, I mean, I had somebody who just said, you know, why would she need help? It's something very natural. You know, you just have a baby, I mean, the baby, and then you just go on with, you know, but they don't know what the process, what a woman goes through. I mean, we've had husbands who just come in, drop their ladies, the wives for labor and delivery, and they'll just tell you, oh, look at the beautiful baby. I'm leaving my wife here, and once she has the baby, you give me a call and let me know. They don't stay there. They don't stay there to see her going through labor and delivery. And most of the hospitals in the beginning, because I worked a lot with St. Mary's, Mercy Health, I've been with them for like forever. So I try and explain, you know, this is something very normal and culturally it's acceptable. You shouldn't even be shocked. And you know, like, yes. And then we have the question of the epidural. You will notice, some of you, most of the African women do not accept the epidural. And not because they don't want to, but they feel that when they accept it, it's something for you to be ashamed of, or it's a sign that you're a coward. Labor was meant for a woman to feel the pain, and that's how God created us, and that's how it's supposed to be. And there's a period there, it doesn't go beyond that. But there are people who have accepted, you know, like, okay, she's in pain and she needs to be helped. I mean, you need to be giving her some sort of something to help, but then very few go through this. And the most stubborn people, sorry, I'm using the word stubborn, but the most stubborn people when it comes to the epidural are people from the Middle East. I mean, people who are Muslims like me. They are very adamant of saying no, and that's just about it. And they will not even have a discussion about the epidural. They would not want to hear anything about what it does. As far as they are concerned, you're supposed to have the baby, and that's just how it goes. And I had an incident with a Congolese family. This is about 5 years ago, where the husband was sitting in the room and telling her, can you just push that baby out because I need to go to work? Yes, I mean, you're going to think, yo, that's very insensitive. But then when people are brought up with that kind of culture, she didn't feel it was insensitive. She thought it was normal. I didn't think it was normal. But I had to address him, and I said, you know, like, you have to be a little bit compassionate about this. She's having a baby. It's not like she's laying an egg. You just have to be there. You have to be present. You know, people need compassion. So when we are talking about things like this, you're going to be noticing a lot of this. Volunteers, when they go in to MomsBloom, you'll notice one thing. We have our 6 weeks postpartum after you have a baby, and then you go and see the doctor. In the African way, once a lady has a baby, the first thing you do when you leave hospital, you go back to your parents. You stay with your parents for a period of 40 days, which is equal to 6 weeks, more or less. And during this time, you know, there's going to be no kind of sexual contact with your husband, of course. And then when you come back to your husband, you're coming back as a bride. I mean, they bring you back home as a bride because now you're ready. And this is why you'll notice a lot of them have children very quickly. And then you have to bring up the question of birth control and contraceptives. That is a very sensitive topic. We have had it with our women several times, many times. And I mean, I don't know how the volunteers work. I mean, I know they go in, they do what they need to do, but then, I mean, I would just advise them. I mean, most of them, if they do go, they sometimes might be sitting and talking to the moms. Most of them have a little understanding of English. A subject like birth control or family planning is something that should not be discussed. It's very sensitive, very, very sensitive. And women will discuss it when they're just with either somebody who's from the same culture or with a doctor. But when you're going into their homes and the husbands are there, it's a sensitive topic. I've been doing it for like 100 years. And when I go with any of the providers, social workers, nurses, any of them, when I go in and the husbands are there, I always give them a tip. It's like, hey, he's here. There's some few things that we don't need to discuss. Yes, because when we go there, we want the client to feel comfortable. We want her to feel, like we've come there, there are services that are being provided. So things like this, we have to be very cultural aware. So, I mean, tradition and cultures are something people hold very, very dearly, and they are trying to understand the American culture. And for us to take initiative to teach them the American culture is very, very important. I mean, I was born and raised in Africa, but I have things that I have let go, and I have things that I've learned, and there are things that I hold on to, and I feel I need these things to go on, and I need these things to identify me. So the same thing with a lot of the women that we deal with. There are some few things that they have and they're very proud of. There are a few things that I think sometimes we need to learn and share. Learning is a very interesting experience. And I've come to find out with a lot of doctors and providers, and funny enough, most of the male doctors are out to learn a lot of things about our culture, like what is wrong and what is right. What should I say and what shouldn't I say? I mean, he's a professional in his job as a doctor. But then there's some few things like we as interpreters, when we interpret, we are very, very culturally sensitive to language. There are words that we feel we can translate or interpret direct, and there are words where we have to interpret with the same meaning, but in a way that is very respectful to the person that you're interpreting to. And it could be, we are talking about when you go to see the OB-GYN, it could be some, like the reproductive parts, reproductive system, anything, You just don't go and say the word out, like with a woman, you're going to say a vagina. I mean, culturally in America, you can say it, but when it comes to our traditions, you don't say it. You don't even use that word. Either you're going to say a female private part or the sensitive part. And then it's just like the word sex, they're going to ask somebody, are you sexually active? We don't go direct and use the word sex the way it is. I mean, there are many ways we use it. It's either the act of a married couple or the act of lovemaking. You just put it in such a way where they understand it, and you don't have to be very open about it. And even with the private parts, like I say, and most of them are not open, of course, to male doctors. And I think also American women are open to that. So, I mean, I just want people to understand, it's a culture that people have grown up with. I mean, I'll tell you my age, so no worries about that. I'm approaching 60. So at my age, you don't expect me, to just change overnight and say, okay, this is something that I've come here and I'm going to drop and forget about. It doesn't happen. Something that has been part of you, like practically almost all your life, it's very difficult to let go. But then when we have the younger generation who have been born and brought up here in the US, we have parents who still want them to hold on to their culture, which I think is beautiful. But then you see them, changing and taking on to the American culture, which is wonderful. In the sense, it makes it so much easier for providers. It makes it so much easier for a lot of people to deal with. But then you still have the parents, you have the grandparents who still think, hey, we are losing this and we don't want to lose that. And the reason, our childcare providers, when they are culturally very, very sensitive, when the kids come in, they make sure, these cultures and traditions are maintained with the small children. It could be language, it could be food, it could be social manners. It could be the way you talk to an adult. It could be the way you address someone. I mean, Kim, you've noticed, nobody calls me by my name. You have noticed that there are very, very few people who even know my name. It's just out of respect They'll either call you Mama or they call me Mama Muhammad because my oldest son is Muhammad. So they'll not call you by the name of your first child. If your first child is John, you're Mama John. If your first child is Elizabeth, it's Mama Elizabeth. So this is how it is. I mean, those are very small things. They may be small, but to us, they mean a lot. And I have never introduced myself to any of our African refugees using my name. Yes, all the 17 years that I've been interpreting, it doesn't matter whether they're from Africa, whether from the Middle East, it's always the name Mama Muhammad, or in Arabic, I'll say Muhammad, Muhammad's mom. So unless they come out and say, like, if I would like to request you next time, what's your full name? I'm not going to say it out loud. I'll write it for them on a piece of paper and I say, this is my name and this is my number. But for me to say it out to them and for them to repeat, that is not culturally appropriate and totally unacceptable. So yeah, things like that should not surprise you. And you'll notice even when you go home to visit the moms, there are some few things you'll notice that are very, very, like unusual. And one of the things is, this is a very common question. Do you sleep with a baby? It's wrong for you to be sleeping with a baby, but most of the African women do sleep with babies and they feel that's the right way to do it. Although right now they're learning about the safety issues and they're learning that it's wrong to be doing that. But some few are still doing it. And when you ask them this question, they'll be very honest and tell you, yes, I do sleep with a baby. My baby is too small and I don't want my baby to sleep alone. I don't want my baby to wake up not knowing I'm near them. So, like you will notice things like this. So there's always a nice and gentle way to teach them. There's always a nice and appropriate way to let them know, it's not right. I mean, a lot of things could happen. And they'll say, no, I'm a mom and I'm very protective and I would never do anything to harm my child. I mean, no mom would hurt any child intentionally. But then you have to take precautions and these are the laws that we need to follow. So when it comes to culture, you just have to know what to say, what not to say. And then we come to different parts. I mean, I'm addressing different issues. Okay, so we talk about even education, when you're talking about school. Like right now with the job that I'm doing, I mean, I'm a coordinator and you have a child maybe who has a speech problem. And provider has told you, I've noticed the child has a speech problem. When we go to talk to the parents, we have to go in a very, very nice, respectful manner in a way to let them know that we are here to help. Because anytime they hear, there are services that are going to help your child, the most fearful fact that they have is my child is going to be taken away from me. That's the first thing that comes into their heads. It's, I promise you, I'm a very good mom. I would never do anything to hurt my child. No, you have not hurt your child. Your child has an issue that needs to be addressed, and we have specialists who can work with you. And you have to explain, and you have to go in a very nice, and I thank God and I thank everybody who has been working with me, and I thank Kim, for backing me up. The bond, the trust that has taken me all these years to build has helped me so much. In the sense, when I go to see them and ask them, we need to address this, it's like, okay, Mama, what is going to be done or what is going to happen? What are they going to do to my child? They're not going to do anything. Are they going to do this? Are they going to take my child to the doctor? Are they going to be putting machines in his head? No machines, no nothing. They do ask questions, and one would think, what kind of questions are these? But as a mom, I think they have every right to ask every kind of question because this is your child and you have a right to know what somebody is supposed to be doing. And thank God, things have been going well. We've had very, very good responses. One of the families, two of the families, three of the families, they've already connected and they're very grateful. And now what is going around and the providers are telling each other. So we've seen a very, very good response. And same thing with MomsBloom, the response has been wonderful when people know there's a service that's going to help them. It's just that, we just have to be very, very careful. And very rarely, I think you'll notice, because we are offering these services to several people and I am having issues, even if with these families I've worked with for a long time. They are just like very sensitive to the fact that I've done it with so many other children and I don't think I need help. Deep down inside, she does need help, but she feels if I say I need help, I'm going to look weak in front of my husband. I'm going to look like not an appropriate mom. And I think I'm going to be losing his respect. It's always there at the back of their minds. Believe me, it always is there. It's why should a stranger come home and help you? Why should the stranger come and do something for you? And you don't need it. It's not like you don't need it. He doesn't know what you need. So we need to be training our moms to be able to open up, to be able to be honest about how they feel, to be able to say, like, hey, I just had a baby and I don't feel too good. Hey, I just had a baby and I'm having these kind of emotions. I've been in hospital where people have had cesarean section, and some of them stay in hospital for about 2-3 days. And the signs are there. Nobody needs to tell you somebody's having these signs. I mean, sometimes they show immediately, but she'll just tell you, it's just because I'm in pain after the incision. The pain is a different thing. And so socially or emotionally or mentally, it's a totally different thing. But they don't want to address those. They just keep them on the side. And as they keep them on the side, these things sometimes pile up. They pile up after some time and it gets to you. And when it gets to you, it gets to your kids. And when it gets to your kids, it becomes like a cycle. So some of the children that are already enrolled in our program, I mean, I have known the moms from the time, even before they were pregnant, and got pregnant and have had these children. And these signs because you saw them before. And when you see a child going through some of these things, it's like, I'm not surprised because I knew something like this would have come up. But then how do you address them? How do you tell them? So it's always best to start from the beginning. When they're pregnant, you just let them know something like this is going to be there. So MomsBloom, we are going to be enrolling 2 of our pregnant moms, who the the grandma is the one introducing us to them, and we're going to be enrolling them. And I'm thinking they're going to be the best example for our African community. They're going to be the best who are going to be maybe our ambassadors and our advocates who are going to let people know, hey, you know what? There's something like this and this and this and this. And if they get this service from the time they're pregnant, there are a lot of things that we can avoid. There are a lot of things that we can foresee not happening. There are a lot of things that could help these moms move on and accept and understand and say, you know what? I have a problem and I need help. I have an issue and I need somebody to help me. And if there are people there who can hear that cry, or there are people who can hear that small voice in there, why not? Why not? Because if this service is helping this mom from the time she's pregnant until the time she has the baby, and everything goes well, and it could be something that could help this child grow up, not to have any kind of issues or any problems. Okay, so I mean, if anybody has any other questions, but then as far as our program is concerned, I haven't talked much about it. It's just that we have had children with speech problems, children with developmental problems, and I know children who have been born as preemies. I mean, they were born premature, and we know some of these problems don't show up immediately. Some of them show up later on. And, like you can just tell the mom, hey, remember, your baby was born 28 weeks. So the baby went through NICU and stayed there and she's doing fine. And now some of these things are showing up now. So this is the best time for you to get help. And this is the best time for you to be helping this child, because you don't want to wait until the child goes to school and then you have to be dealing with telephone calls every day where teachers are going to be calling you and say, hey, you know what? You need to come in for so-and-so. You need to be coming in for this. So, if you can just intervene when it's still very early, it's amazing. And I know, it's going to be a very, very resourceful, it's going to be an asset to most of the parents. And I think that's just about what I have to say. I mean, Kim, do you want to add something, please?
Yeah, so I just want to add that now you can see when we were applying for this grant and I was writing it, I've told Manira many times, she is the only person I had in mind for this position and to do this work. And if she didn't accept the position, there was no plan B in my mind, because right there, she stressed the importance of the relationship and the trust. And I think that is, you know, if you don't take away anything else, to know that it's building on trusted relationships. And that's the work we're doing as well. Yes, our Hands Connected program is, you know, about culturally responsive childcare, but it's also building trusted relationships. It's working together as a community. We're building trusted relationships with those providers. They're the ones interacting and have that relationship with the other families. And through those relationships, they're learning some of these things that Manira is talking about. So when we talk about safe sleep, that is something as a licensed provider, they have to practice in their licensed home, and they're able to share some of those things with the parents, so that the parents have the information to make good decisions. So Manira, in the work that she's doing with our navigator services, and I want you to know this too, when you're interacting with families, that communication, the more communication we have, the better. So if you're struggling with a particular issue, whether it be communication with the parent, or you know, something that came up in the home, feel free to communicate with Manira or myself. That information is helpful, and we're able to go back and kind of, I don't want to say troubleshoot, but work with the parents to make sure, because oftentimes it is either a language, maybe a interpretation issue, that the parents aren't necessarily understanding. And we can often go back and clarify those things. So that communication piece is key. I think too, along that same line with communication, Bethany, through separate funding through Ready by 5, also does have the interpretation services, and we have that in-house. We have over 100 interpreters, all the different languages that our clients speak. So, but they are often more comfortable with even an interpreter that they're familiar with. All of those things along the way, that communication, building trust, everything you said so well, and just knowing that they are, as you said, coming from a different cultural understanding, and they want to be good parents. Oftentimes, some of the things that they may have questions about, or some of the things you're seeing in the home, may simply be not having the understanding, not having the resources, and being able to share some of, I think, your experiences. From what I understand, many of the volunteers are moms, or were moms, or are grandmas, and to be able to share, just as, you know, someone coming in who has been in their situation and lived that experience and has parented, and you know, to share some of your experiences without judgment, allowing them to share their experiences, and to share you know, some of the things that they value from their culture. I know I have to remind myself of that over and over again, and I think it's important as you're going into the home and interacting and understanding some of these things that Manira has mentioned tonight, that are some of those cultural norms. So yeah, so if anyone has any questions, feel free, or if you have any questions, you know, later, you're welcome to contact us anytime.
Perfect. That would be wonderful. Yes. Okay. Yeah, they can definitely do that. Definitely. Oh, yes. Mhm. Mhm. Will do.
So that was my question. If I were matched with a Congolese family, would I always have Manira with me, or how does that work?
Mhm. 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 Mhm.
Are you finding that that oftentimes after those first couple of visits, they're not wanting an interpreter? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then they have enough language to be okay on their own?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It
They're all-
depends. Some of them have a little bit of understanding of English.
And a lot of times you'll find out maybe you used an interpreter the first time or two, and then they say it's fine to come without an interpreter. And you'll
Mhm.
find out that they actually have more English language comprehension than you realized with those first two visits.
Yes.
So that's not unusual. So, and I think
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
and I don't know, what typically what that looks like when volunteers are coming in that first time, but I think with that first visit, just to really get to know the individual and kind of based on their level of comfort, that
Mhm.
some people may not be comfortable sharing a lot about themselves initially, and others, many, I've had this many times where they love to share their story and a little bit about their background and their family. And when you provide that opportunity and that free space to do that,
Mhm.
you'll get a lot of information that way as well.
Yeah, most of the times when the husbands are not there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
See, even with me, I mean, it's not like the husbands don't know me. They do. They do. I mean, but you'll see some of them are very persistent. They'll just sit there. And it's like, okay, well, you just tip. And now that when we do this Zoom or we are doing the telehealth, I just text the providers and just let them know. She's silent today. I think he's nearby. Just to let you know, yes. So some of these questions we just have to avoid, yes. I mean, they're there. The women are very, very open. They can be very open about it. But then when they're there, I'm not saying it's all of them, but we do run into cases like this. We do.
That's one of the neat things about our program too, because many of our providers, most of our providers now, I've been privileged to work with for a number of years, and to see kind of where they started and their comfort level with speaking up and having a voice, and to the point now where they're really feeling empowered, like they're operating their own business. You know, they know how to manage their business, and part of that is, you know, managing the financial side of it, or things that they may not have, you know, been involved with previously. You know, it's really neat to see that, and to have their husbands respect that, and respect what they're doing. Really is empowering. So
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Oh, no, just feel free, Kimber. I mean, they can always get in touch with me, you know, yeah. Making the connection, you know, it always sometimes makes a difference, you know, like, okay, oh, somebody's coming in, so and so, you know, like, just feel free. Yeah, just giving them that comfort, okay, you're fine. There's nothing for you to be worried about. Mm-hmm. No, thank you for inviting us. We
yeah,
appreciate it.
thank you.
Mm-hmm. You too. Enjoy.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.